Good evening, everybody. My name is Sean. I'm one of the librarians here at the Topsfield Library. Really excited to invite a Topsfield native, author, a whole bunch of other things that we'll get into. True Renaissance person here, Parker Jamison, who writes as Ox Devere. So, hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
Thank you all for coming.
So, your debut novel was released relatively recently, and it was called Rage of the Jinn. Well, first, before we get to that, why don't we introduce if you could introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, so if you're all Topsfield people in here, maybe some of you, my name is Parker Jamison. I grew up in Topsfield. I sort of grew up in this library. Some of you may not remember before it was renovated. There was like a children's room downstairs. I played a lot of Oregon Trail and died of dysentery many times on those computers. I got out all the Goosebumps books. And then they renovated it, and in high school I actually worked at this library at the front desk. So this has really been my stomping grounds for a long time. And so it's pretty nice to be back here. But yeah, I graduated Masco in 2003. And as I understand, there are some other authors who walked out of Masco that year.
Yeah, and I mean, just in the past year, we've had like Lindsay Farah, who graduated a couple years after you, who also worked at the Topsfield Library.
It's a good start.
Something in the air over here, I suppose, that just inspires authors. But we're really glad that you're back. We're really glad to welcome you back here. So why don't you just talk a little about yourself at first? Your journey, how you became an author.
Okay, let's go way back. My first word was book, which, I mean, I think I was pretending to read before I could actually read. And huge reader my whole life. And then I ended up going to film school, actually. Got a degree in film. Worked in movies and television up here in Boston, and then moved to LA and did that out there. Came back here, was into screenwriting with a partner, and had some things happen, like COVID happened, and it killed one of our script deals. And then we all were suspended in limbo, wondering, is this the end? So during early quarantine, I sort of thought, now might be the time to just write a book. And so I began a book, and Russia invaded Ukraine, and that book went splat because it was very much set around the geopolitical scene in Russia. So put that on the shelf and started over. And I finished this last fall and got it to print in December. But I think a lot of the screenwriting training helped me write a more entertaining book, I hope. Yeah.
So I guess the most hard-hitting question, how did you come up with the nom de plume Ox Devere?
Okay, so I could do a TED Talk on this one. My name, Parker Jamison, already sounds like a pen name, I realize, but I never wanted to publish under my own name. And when I needed to come up with something, Ox Devere came pretty quickly, because a few years ago I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with some very esteemed Shakespearean actors from England who were saying that there's no way that this guy who grew up in Stratford-upon-Avon, whose parents were illiterate, whose children were illiterate, was the greatest writer in the history of the English language. So it's like, wait, come on, you're saying Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare? And I started to go down the rabbit hole of understanding that he wrote about things like the law, falconry, Italian courts, things that you couldn't Google, you couldn't even find out in a book because you couldn't get a book. There really were no libraries. How did a man, no matter how intelligent he was, accumulate so much knowledge of the world at the time? And was increasingly convinced by reading about the life of another man who was in fact a visitor to every single Italian city that Shakespeare wrote about. He was well versed in sword fighting and horseback riding, everything, the law, everything. He had access to the best private library in England, but he was an aristocrat, and so he didn't want to write under his own name because he was skewering all of these people in the court. So he his real name was Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford. And after I read his biography, things as specific as in Hamlet, the prince is kidnapped by Danish pirates and washes up on shore naked. That actually happened to Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford. So it's incredibly specific. So I'm very much convinced now. I've seen six verified signatures of William Shakespeare of Stratford-upon-Avon, and the man can't even write his own name. He did not write for a living. I gotta know that. So it's a rabbit hole. I encourage anybody who wants to go down it to be convinced. It's kind of exciting. So I just thought, I would like to do an ode to the most famous pen name of all time that most people don't know was a pen name. That's it. That's my spiel. That's my pen name.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the book, which I read, really enjoyed. Really, for its size, I felt like a very quick read nonetheless. But in this book, oh my God, Paris, London, the Egypt-Libya border, Syria, Portugal, Jerusalem. Am I missing anything?
Cyprus.
Yeah. And you really go in depth about like the inside of the Temple Mount, or the inside of a lot of these like fortresses and stuff. This must have been an insane amount of research, right? Insane amount of research. Yeah, I honestly don't know how people wrote stuff like this before the internet. Yeah. And I always try to give credit to the people, the nameless people who strap on or carry their camera and just walk around a place and then put it on YouTube. They'll spend 30 minutes walking around a city or walking around just to show people. And I sit there and I watch that stuff because it's the absolute closest I could get to, say, the inside of, on the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock. Non-Muslims are not allowed. And so I'm not getting in there. So being able to watch videos posted by Muslims who have gone in to the prayer space and whatnot is invaluable, really invaluable. And just from the research, I consider it sort of a sign of respect to get everything right that I can possibly get right. Yeah. I don't want to misrepresent anything. I know a lot of these places are important to people, and I want to do everything I can, if I've been there or not, to make it feel authentic to someone who could walk in those spaces. So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it really shows through in the writing. And that was the first question I had come to mind after reading. It was just like, how did you know all this? I know the characters are also poring over maps constantly too. Yeah. Which brings me to another question. So I met you Saturday, and I started reading the book afterwards. And I know on the website you say that you don't see yourself being the main character, Ridley, at all. But I couldn't help but to like, I was just like, oh yeah, she looks like that. Is there like autobiographical elements in any of the characters, or are they based off of people you know? That's a good question. It was actually kind of interesting, and I think this is maybe an element that people wouldn't know if they superficially think that I'm a little bit like the main character, Ridley. It's something that's been very challenging to me, is to get into her head and write from her headspace, because those are all very private thoughts. No one really knows what's going on in our head, in our inner narrative, and hers is very unfamiliar to me. Yeah. So I don't have the same types of thoughts she has. So whenever I get into her inner workings, it's like slipping on a different glove. So that I love doing that. Yeah. I love getting into her headspace. I wish I was as tall as she is, but no. I cobbled some things together though.
And this is strange, one of the very sad things, only one person who's read the book has caught this. There was an actress from the TV show Glee who tragically drowned a few years ago. She had taken her son out, her 3-year-old son, I think, out on a lake to go swimming with him. She managed they got caught some kind of current. She managed to get her little son up on the boat, but then got dragged away. Tragic. I knew her husband, the father of that child, a bit in LA. Really tragic, and that story just really sank me because of the slight association. Really tragic, and that was the genesis of what happened to Ridley with her mother when she was young. So there are bits and pieces in there. No one is directly based in the book off of anyone I know. But it was fun. I had a friend whose wife is a fighter pilot. She was like a Top Gun ace, and it was wonderful to have him read the book. And he was telling me, he's like, I knew women like Ridley, and my wife knows women like Ridley. Like, this feels very familiar. And I was very moved by that and very honored that I'm like, I really hope I represented those women well in that character.
Absolutely. So another question, what are some authors that have inspired you? What books, stories have inspired you when writing this book?
I think it's not just books, it's a combination of things. I mean, I love writers like you're saying Michael Crichton. I read him when I was pretty young even. I love authors like James Rollins and Daniel Silva, and yet at the same time, storytelling is storytelling. So any way I can absorb it, playing video games that have terrific adventure narratives like the Uncharted series, obviously Indiana Jones. Many of us grew up with that.
Just as an aside, I probably counted like 5-6 different times where I was just like, oh, that's a line. That's a line from Indiana Jones. Even like so like when you're like talking about like the Well of Souls or something too, and I'm just like, oh, that's like the same as in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It is, but it's actually the name of the place. When I read it, I was like, wait, did Indiana Jones get it from here? Because I was like, shoot, it's going to look like I copied it. But now it's really called the Well of Souls. But I do like imbuing, I like to have fun. I like imbuing, and I like making reference to well-loved things that even the characters would love, so they would refer to. And I can't remember what your question was. Inspiration.
Like inspirational authors or characters or anything like that. What kind of got you in the mind space to create the characters that you ended up creating?
I think probably the biggest thing is I wrote a book I wanted to read, and that's probably the best thing you could do if you ever want to write is, man, don't try to read the market or anything. You're going to get burnt out. Just write the kind of book you want to exist. And I'm a pretty big action adventure. I love archaeological stuff. I love hidden mysteries and things that feel significant. When you discover them, they feel like they're impactful to the world.
And I guess to get a little bit into the plot, nothing's more impactful than when you're talking about like Seal of Solomon and all the Notre Dame where the book begins all the way through the Knights Templar, stuff like that. You're kind of hitting a lot of big things.
This is actually, for anyone who's read the book, there's a ring in it that plays a pretty big part, and I was actually gifted a replica ring of the Seal of Solomon, which is kind of cool. It doesn't have any power in it. It's not the real thing. You read the book, you find the real thing, but so I wear it to some book events. It's nice and shiny.
I guess when talking about the book, I don't even know how to begin to describe it. It's action adventure. You got some supernatural elements. There's a lot going on. So, like, in your own words, give us like a little bit of
summarize the book.
Not no spoilers or anything, but yeah.
Summarize the book.
Not summarize
Oh,
it,
no.
but like try like how would you describe?
How would I describe it?
Yeah, someone just like, can you explain like what would you classify this book as?
It did take me 476 pages, really, to summarize the book. I think globetrotting, well, it's not a very eloquent word, it's pretty descriptive. It's a thriller. I think the biggest thing I want you to do at the end of the chapter is have to read the next chapter. And it is. I mean, it's got big themes. It's got significant stuff that happens. Again, no spoilers, but it's a supernatural action adventure globetrotting thriller with rather explosive elements and real destruction. Real destruction. Yeah. How was that?
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
In the best way possible.
I had the same trouble you have describing it.
It was like, some like one of my coworkers was like, give me a sentence, and I was just like, but
you're on a ride, is what you are.
And that was the great thing about it, though. It was 476 pages, as you said. Didn't really feel like it didn't. It was. It moved fast, and the pages kind of, you didn't realize, I just knocked out 100 pages. Really quick. So why don't we talk about your writing process a little bit? When you're writing, are you like kind of plot driven, or do you kind of make it up as you go along, or?
No, super plot driven. And I think the idea of both a tight plot, planning ahead, and pacing comes a lot from screenwriting for years. You don't have any time to meander to things in screenwriting. You are there to write the blueprint for something that's exciting, has should be about 2 hours, around 2 hours, and you got to tell the story. And so I have to plot everything ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know how people don't. I'm amazed at the amount of people who could just get into a book and write and explore and discover. But it actually works for me because I love having stuff to look forward to writing. So I'm into writing the second book right now, and I've plotted stuff out, and I look at the outline, I'm like, I'm really excited to get to that scene. That's going to be really fun to write. So you kind of earn your way there. And I think really the only rule of storytelling in any sense is don't be boring. Just, you can break any other rule you want. 3-act structure, main characters, anything, just don't be boring. So you want the pages to turn. You want people to be so invested that they really have to know.
From beginning to end, like, how long did it take?
I think I sort of set myself a deadline, and I think I researched for a month and plotted out, and then it took me 5 months to finish the first draft, which is I think a pretty good clip at 476 pages.
So you had like a little bit of like I guess you started off like a storyboard or like a synopsis. You knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like plot wise, and it's just kind of like filling it out from there.
Yeah, and because there are puzzles in the plot that are very important to the plot, I had to know how the puzzles worked. So I couldn't just wander into them and think, what is this one going to be? I really had to know ahead of time how they all link together. And because it's all very like historical too, I needed to know how the history wove into each of them. So the plotting was very important to all of that. And to try to eliminate loopholes, it's a lot easier to fix things in an outline than it is to fix them in the chapter. So it saves time.
If you stumble over something and you realize it contradicts something that you said before. Yeah,
yes.
So that type of inconsistency.
Yep.
But it just one thing that I could foresee being an issue, and I wonder if it was for you, like you have the storyline set up. Did you ever feel like when writing it, or maybe you didn't explain something, and it made perfect sense in your head because you've been living with this idea in your head, or this setup for so long, that how did you avoid that, just being like, oh, you understood, you understand it, you get it, when this is all a novel concept to the reader?
Yeah, it is actually pretty difficult. You need to explain things. You don't want to over-explain, you don't want to be boring, but then you also don't want to be repetitive. So I need to keep everything cohesive and keep readers up to date on new discoveries, but not be repetitive.
Yeah.
And there was, I can't spoil it, but there was a moment at the very end, some of the climactic scenes, where I'm sort of relaying, like, how does this happen? Okay, this would happen, they would do that. And then it hit me, I was like, why wouldn't this person just do that? And I was like, oh no, the whole plot. And I just thought, there's got to be a way out of this. There's got to be a way out of this. And so this is my, like, few people know this is like my crowning moment for being proud of what I did, was found a way to do it. I went back and worked in a little detail earlier in the book, and it all absolutely paid off at the end. So I solved the problem, and put a new obstacle in front of a character, because otherwise it would have been too easy.
I think I know what you're talking about.
You probably do. You probably do. A couple people have caught that payoff of, like, oh, okay. So yeah, I can't spoil it, but that was a tough one, because I really got to the end of the book and realized, oh, none of this makes sense. I need to make it make sense. You can confirm with me after all this.
Yeah,
if you're right.
I have a theory, but
yeah, no doubt.
So you're writing a second book.
Yeah.
You mentioned. What's the title of that?
The Devil's Eye.
The Devil's Eye. And is this featuring same characters? Are we building on the same characters? New universe? Same universe?
Same main character. How this little unit operates is the main character is going to be the same, but she gets a new partner with each mission.
Yeah.
So you could see the same people pop up that are well loved, but it changes things. I think it shakes things up. It gives a new dynamic, and a new person brings out things in a person. It's not the same dynamic every time. You have someone you love, but then you have someone to push and challenge them in a new way, and you bring back the fan favorites. So it is actually really exciting to bring in new characters to surround her.
Yeah.
And it's pretty different in many elements from the first book. But I actually went to Scotland. I got back from Scotland about a week and a half ago, and had done a bunch of research out there. Pretty exciting. It's a great excuse to travel.
Same globe-trotting adventures?
Yes.
All right.
Globe-trotting to different places.
And so how far along are you, roughly?
Probably a third of the way through, I'd say.
And with this one, you are working with your partner,
Yeah.
Paul.
Paul, yeah.
Kimball.
We've been screenwriting for years together, and so we have a pretty well-established rapport and a pretty good understanding of each other creatively. And so the first book I had sort of taken on as a project and asked him, like, do you want to come on this adventure with me? And he was like, yes, but I was already sort of into the book. And so he was extremely supportive, and he's like, yes, I want to be invested in the second book. So we've mapped this one out together, we're writing it together, and yeah, he was just up here last week. We got some work done in person, which is always great.
How does like that split work though, when you're working with someone who's not, like, it's not like an eyeball to eyeball thing usually?
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
How do you maintain like the like avoiding it becoming disjointed in any way?
Zoom. I mean, Zoom. It would be pretty difficult. It's strange, even on the phone, there's such a disconnect. Being able to see somebody is...
Like their face and facial expressions.
Yeah, and we have a lot of creative silences, I'll call them, where we're both just sitting on a problem, and it's awkward on the phone. Even if you know the person, it's a little awkward to just sit in silence. So sitting in silence on video calls is much easier, and you share documents on the computer, and so you can see when someone's editing or adding something. And I'm glad we've refined the collaboration over years of screenwriting, because books are a lot denser. It's a lot more material you got to work with.
Well, to kind of follow up on that, how is what are the big differences between screenwriting and writing a book?
I had to learn to chill out a little bit on pacing, actually. I was running a little fast when I first was getting into the book, and I was also not doing really any interior stuff. You want to know a character in a book more deeply than you do in a script. A script is just a blueprint. The actor's face brings it to life. But if you're just reading, you do need a little bit more of what's going on in the character and how they're handling something or dealing with something, or even just generally what their attitude is, instead of just seeing what they're doing. And so I needed to slow down in order to do that and fill out the space for the reader.
Interesting. One question that I had when I was looking at it, so when I was reading the book, I noticed a lot of musical references that were kind of hidden in there or whatever. The one that off the top of my head is a reference to Queen or whatever. And I noticed on your website that there's almost like this multimedia where there's a musical playlist. And was that something that you kind of thought from the beginning? What was the thinking behind that?
I just ripped it off from another author. I wish I could remember and honestly give them credit. I was on another author's website and saw that he had put a playlist for one of his books. I thought, I instantly want to listen to this. I love the book, and it just kind of provides a vibe, a mood. I found some great songs, and it even kind of lets you into the author's headspace a little bit, because if they connected these songs to the book, I don't know, it enriches it, I think. So I was pretty excited to do that, actually, and I'm working on the second one. When
I went back in my head afterwards, I was thinking about it, and then I was picturing the book sort of like a movie almost.
Yeah.
Where it's just this is the soundtrack that went with it, and then, connecting stuff to scenes and stuff.
Yes.
So I just thought that was fascinating. I didn't know if that had any sort of relation to your previous career or anything.
I mean, it feels very movie to me. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was, I hadn't seen it before, so I thought it was really neat. Really cool, really different.
I really wish I could credit the author, and I'm going to have to go find out who that was, because it was great. I loved it.
I'm starting on one little question. So do you have any, anything interesting? What was the biggest, hurdle you hit while writing this book, that those type of things? Any interesting stories?
Well, funny anecdote is a lot of people who've read it, they call it cinematic. You could see it in your head. Great. But then they say this should be a movie, and I'm like, wait till you get to the end. It's not going to be a movie. No one's going to film or finance what happens at the end. No spoilers. For those of you who've read it, you probably know what I mean. But I keep sort of having to put people off that notion of it's a movie in your head. Maybe that's the best we'll get. So
probably, yeah. But the last scene is probably where that should belong.
Yeah, on the page, in your head.
Writing that, I guess, that climactic scene. Was there any trepidation or anything like that, or was that just how you imagined it from the beginning and kind of just going from there?
I dive in. I really dive in, and something that kind of bothers me a lot about the action adventure books I do love is that if the good guys succeed in the end, everything is saved. It was nothing even happened, and We didn't need to worry about anything. And I think, okay, you may succeed overall, but it doesn't feel real unless maybe some damage is done. Maybe there's some destruction. Maybe you didn't fully succeed in preventing everything. And there is
this universe. There's a
real destruction.
There's some real losses for human civilization.
Yes, and I kind of set the scene. I wanted to set that tone and the precedent pretty early in the book.
Yeah.
There's a scene early in the book where I just go ahead and destroy something. I've actually been to the place I destroyed, and I was sitting there destroying it on the page. I go, oh, it's so sad. It's so pretty. And I wanted to set that tone for the end when also real destruction happens to places that should be indestructible in movies. And that carries over the next book. That's a reference point, is what really got destroyed in the world in the first one.
That would be...
You see what happens in the second one. I'm going to destroy more stuff.
Well, right.
Yeah.
That question kind of stood in my head. But was there like any part that you kind of like struggled with while writing, like
technically or emotionally?
Either.
I actually think it was a little tough to destroy that first place that I destroyed. I didn't love it.
Like you were there.
Yeah.
Like, you have that emotional connection.
It was just so great. The Notre Dame part. Most people ask about this. Was this true story?
The sarcophagus. Yeah.
Yeah. The genesis for this book. I went to Notre Dame 2015, I think. It was just blown away. I probably spent 3 hours there just looking through it. It was incredible. And when it burned, 2019, I never thought I'd like cry over a building, but I really was pretty close to tears all day watching this emblem be destroyed. And when they were excavating it to rebuild it, they really did find a mysterious sarcophagus under the floor. This was a news story. This was what gave me the idea to write this whole book. And nobody knew who that was or why they were buried there. It was not normal for anyone to be buried beneath Notre Dame, nevertheless, in sort of an unmarked sarcophagus. And so when that story went out, and of course the announcement was, the French government is going to open it, and boy, did my head explode with possibilities. So that's where this story came from. And gosh, like a month before I started writing, they in fact opened it. And it's really pretty boring, so I prefer the book. But it's true story, based on a true story.
Boring was probably better for
I know.
for the characters involved.
My goodness.
But that's funny. Were you kind of a globetrotter as a kid? Were you as well traveled as Ridley was?
I went to Vermont a lot, and that's about it. No, I do love travel. I mean, I love stories that take me somewhere else. Always have.
And the main character speaks 8 different languages.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, she got that from wandering the earth. She had a slightly unconventional childhood. After losing her mother, her father dragged her and her brother around Europe. And so she just picked things up from all of the various places she had to live. And she never had roots. She never really settled, but she had a good ear. And that was one of the reasons she was recruited to work for the unit she works for, is because she can find her way around and communicate with a lot of people pretty well.
Was it difficult to write? So the character of Henri is very religious. Did you have trouble writing that character at all?
Not at all. No. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
And while he's Anglican. I'm not Anglican. I had to learn a couple things about Anglicanism.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring a perspective that is different from the main characters. And it wanted them to have these dialogues where they're not in sync, but they're respectful, and they're really listening to the other person's struggle with what's happening around them, struggle to explain it, struggle to understand it, process it. And I thought, it was important to have that character because, and his perspective of faith, because of the monumental issues that they're dealing with, the history, and the whole faith process.
And at the end too, like humanized, I guess, where you're just like, you're not just reading but you're just like through the eyes of someone that's seeing what is happening, just being like, oh, God, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Order of Raphael, huh? So the I guess bad guys. Right?
Pretty bad guys, yeah. They don't think they're bad guys, but they're bad guys.
That's what makes them good bad guys, right?
Yeah.
It's not realizing that you're a bad guy. What was the creation process for that in your head? Was that just...
I didn't want to... Secret orders, cults throughout history are... they're cliche because they're entertaining. People keep using them because they're pretty entertaining. I didn't want to use anything that had been used before. I wanted to draw off of the real Templars. They really did flee France, pretty much to Portugal, and they were given safe haven, but then they were really domesticated. They still technically exist today by a different name, but all they do is they become mayors and they give themselves medals. It's really innocuous.
Use that same language on the book too.
Yes, they really do. That was weird to learn when I got to Portugal, but they don't mean much. But I thought, their beliefs were very strong at one time. And I find if a group is placated, you could often find really strong, true believers who are angry that the group got placated and took off on their own. And I used one of the apocryphal books, the Book of Enoch, to sort of base a lot of the worldview. It's fantastical, it's imaginative, and I took the name Raphael from one of the archangels who is often referred to in this Book of Enoch that tells about fallen angels, and it was really fun to work on that material.
I think one thing that I found interesting was, so the main bad character, he's not the
Tiago.
Master. Tiago, he's but for the purposes of this book, the main bad character. The little bit of a backstory you gave him where he kind of got sucked in from his uncle, and was kind of someone that was just kind of looking for something. I thought that was kind of interesting in terms of how someone, it seemed like there was some real thought on how someone would get sucked into this type of cult, I guess.
And it's fun to find secret knowledge. I think that's probably why conspiracy theories as a broad term, some of them are actually true, but people who believe in one tend to believe in a lot of them. And I think there is a thrill in thinking, I've discovered the secret knowledge that no one else has. So I think it's a very exciting thing for people to be invited into a space. Now, in the fictional book, obviously, he really discovered something pretty wild. But what a thrill for a kid to be invited in to that space by someone who's so influential and in such an authoritative space. And I also he's human, he's a grown bad guy, but I don't love henchmen who mean nothing to the story, and he's got a few associates that I wanted to humanize. They travel the world together. They rely on each other to save each other's lives. They know each other. And, tiny spoiler, when one of them dies,
he gets mad.
He gets furious because he cares about that guy. And I wanted to make it not like endless henchmen dying around him, but these are his associates, are people he cares about.
Yeah.
It meant something personal when one of them died. So.
And I think you did a good job with that, because that did stand out to me as well, where it was almost sort of like that was a turning point where the relationship between the good guys and the bad guys changed from like tense, but like, you know, there wasn't like that threat of like kill him now, and then, you know, there's really like the last time they have an interaction on the screen where you kind of see just how cold-blooded the guy in that instance, someone who cared, you know, Ridley and Henri cared a lot about, you know, God, you know, et cetera, yada.
I like how
yada.
you said on the screen.
Well,
It's a movie in your head,
well,
see?
I mean, and that's to get back. I think that's the thing that really stands out to me is it really, like, I really kind of picture it in my head, and I think you did a great job doing that.
Great.
And that part blew me away. How like everything was descriptive, where I was able to really kind of see things going in my head, and well, I loved it.
Well, great. Thank you.
Kind of opening it up to a question and answer session, if that's all right with you.
Sure thing.
Nice 15 minutes here. Does anyone have any questions? Anything that they want to ask our author here?
I can't give too many spoilers, but I will give a few if you really want.
Don't be shy.
You said that this doesn't really lend itself to a movie, but would the characters ever become part of a movie or script that you write?
That's a good question. I actually thought about that. I think the second book could easily be a movie. I hope it comes across as cinematic as the first one, with less controversial problems as to why it would never be a movie. It's also interesting, one of the scripts that I'd written with my partner is about a spy, a much older spy, but as a great character. And I sometimes wonder, I'm like, could we steal that character and like put them in this maybe? And I'm like, shoot, would that create a conflict of interest if that movie got made? Like, is that...
Throw a different name on it.
Yeah, I think, okay. But it is fun to think about, like, crossing the universe and sort of making an integrated universe. Very movie, again, but yeah, it's a fun idea. I thought about it. Yes, the Marvel universe. Yeah, something like that.
How would you classify your book?
As a genre,
As a category?
I would say it's an action adventure thriller. If I had to put more words on it, it's supernatural, some of it, archaeological, some of it, and I hope it's pretty thrilling. Yeah.
So in your writing process, do you all take turns on chapters?
That's a good question.
Who writes what?
So my words are the last ones on the page. I tend to have the voice and the tone that my writing partner and I both sync with.
Yeah.
And he'll often say, he's like, yeah, I'll take a crack, but we know it's going to be like you're finishing on it. And he's pretty happy with that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to do that. Not because I'm a control freak or anything. But the plotting is it's so helpful to me to have him. Like he's integral in the creative plotting of what we're doing and discussing characters and doing some of the research, and it's and that's where the real meat is.
Yeah.
And that's where the most essential part really is. So I think he is just fantastic creative partner, collaborator, and we just sharpen each other. We improve each other's thoughts and ideas and challenge what may be a loophole or a logic problem. And putting in, it's usually I'm the last typer. Yeah.
Did you ever have any disagreements about plot?
Good question. We really have never argued about anything creative, which is kind of amazing. I've looked at that sometimes and been like, is that good or bad? I don't know if that's okay. We don't usually, and I think one of the most important things for co-writers, and this is one of the reasons that we first partnered up, is we have a similar worldview. We don't agree on everything, but we sort of have a similar sense. And for instance, we often write things that are bittersweet endings. We don't like it all one way or all the other. We tend to be very in sync on sort of the beautiful and the brutal stuff about the world. We can't really be separated from each other. So I would say that because of that, I think we always sort of want to go in the same direction creatively and express the same things. So that helps cut down, I think, on disagreements over like the details of how we do that. Yeah.
One question that I have for you is the publishing process. Tell us about that, how you kind of work through that, and I guess like the more less creative, more business end, I guess.
Terrible stuff.
Yeah.
So I spent a while looking around at publishing houses and publishing deals and authors. Really dug into successful authors today, speaking about how they got their deals, what do they like and not like about the publishing world. And I kept hearing resoundingly that authors are expected to do more and more of their own marketing now and their own PR and keep up their own social media accounts, and yet they're not afforded any more money. Their publishing company still takes a massive cut and they get a pretty small percentage.
Yeah.
And yet they're doing increasingly more work. And I just felt like that's not very cool. And so I just thought if you're expected to do the marketing, I would prefer to keep most of the profits. And hearing from some traditionally published authors who'd said, you know what, I decided to go ahead and publish my own stuff now. And I thought, okay, that's a real undertaking. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's like learning a new business. So that part's challenging, especially for creative people. We're not always in tune to all the logistical stuff that entails. If you can see me starting to sweat right now. So it's challenging, but I have much more control. I got to choose the cover. I got to choose, all the editing, the formatting, the font, everything.
It kind of sounds like, kind of to dovetail to something you said earlier, the method that you took kind of allowed you to be more creative and allowed you to write a book that you want to read instead of worrying about any sort of outsider point of view or anything like that.
Yeah, and thankfully I had an editor that I know very well, is a good friend of mine. So she's a professional editor, and so she helped push me, but she also knew me, and she would know, like, what am I trying to say here? And she could help work through that. And she's very generous. I just took her to Scotland with me on the second. I was like, this is a giant thank you for helping with this book. I'm not tied down to someone else's demand of the type of book I write, which is nice.
So, like, it's more labor in one sense, something that a creative person might not necessarily like, but it affords you more creative freedom. So it's the trade-offs, I guess. Right?
Yeah, and it's a building process. You want to build a new business from scratch, and no one knows your name yet. Yeah. Really, no one knows my name because it's not on the book. So, yeah.
I just have two questions, and they're totally unrelated. One of them is, can you describe your a little bit of your specific process for plotting out action scenes. So the example I'm thinking of, and there's going to be a similar one in the second book, but bigger, is in, I think it was Tomar, where you had kind of a scene in ancient ruins of one of these castles. And what it took to actually make it real and fit.
Yeah, it's read a lot of action scenes, and the most important thing in an action scene is clarity, and it can be really easy to get lost. It's easier in a movie. You're seeing everyone move around. Harder in a book. If you have a lot of people involved and it's a big space and they have to be very specific actions they're taking when and where, that's really challenging. I actually, with difficult scenes, I actually get a big piece of paper and I draw or trace the exact dimensions, the layout, the diagram of the space that I need to work with. I label everything. I get a whole bunch of different colored pens and I move things here and there and make notes because I need to see it clearly in order to express it clearly, and it has to all make sense. So I've said before that the scenes that read most quickly were the slowest, hardest ones to write because they've really got to all be very precise and they have to be well drawn out, and I hope they make sense. Yeah.
And the second unrelated question was, who's your favorite film director and why? or two or three.
No, make it hard. Do one.
This is, I mean, I don't have one. But I will say the most impactful director of all time is Steven Spielberg, without a doubt. And I think he just gets it more than any other director. He gets things from Indiana Jones to Jurassic Park to Schindler's List and E.T. I mean, he gets the whole scope and spectrum of human emotions and experiences, and he conveys it on screen in a way that nobody else can do. So
if you, in your book, if you had a soundtrack to go along with it, would you have John Williams do it?
yes, I sometimes listen to John Williams while I'm writing. Can't go wrong.
You stressed wanting to be accurate, and you use words like respect or respectful of dimensions that you cross. To what extent did historical realities provide you with a framework or not?
That's a good question. There's something in all creative work. I think you always need to respect what is, unless you know you're breaking it. So I never want to do something out of ignorance. I track history as well as I possibly can, and I only change it, so to speak, if I'm making a creative decision to work in fiction. I never want to get anything wrong that's true, accurate, and important to state. So there are actually some authors who write in their afterword or prologue, like, hey, this is real, but this is not. And I know I put them together in the book. I just want to be clear that I made all this stuff up.
Yeah.
And so I actually thought about doing that, but I'm like, I don't know. I hope the supernatural stuff kind of gives it away. Some of the scenes that are happening.
The audience, I guess.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, I never want to cut a corner. I will sometimes make creative choices that veer away from accuracy, but I love history too. I mean, I love exploring history, and it's a discovery process, you know, and so I really enjoy getting into the details and relaying them and telling the exciting parts and hopefully taking out the boring parts. So.
I think we have another follow-up.
One question is your second book that you're working on Is it in any way a sequel, or is it just respect the realities of the first?
That's yeah, that's a good question. It's not a direct sequel. It is, so same main character. There's some recurring characters. They refer to things that happened in the first book, but it's a completely different mission and undertaking. And the first book ends with a bit of a cliffhanger and kind of threads into what may be coming next. That's woven into the second book, but it's not necessarily the focus. So there are some elements that will carry on through the books. Like the Order of Raphael is not done with just because some guy
Who
died.
made clear is not nearly the most important.
Right. It was pretty clear that he's not the top of the food chain. And so at the end, Ridley goes looking for the guy at the top of the food chain, and she gets a name. That's not the second book, but in the second book, she still has to keep pursuing that, and it may or may not pop up in different places. And so there is like a Marvel universe,
This is like
some may say.
Spectre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so there are setups for things that will be paid off throughout books down the line, but it's not a direct sequel, if that makes sense.
I think we're hitting right on an hour here.
Now you know everything. It's great.
I think we can probably wrap up, and it was a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
It was such a good book. It really was. I really
Great.
enjoyed it a lot, and I'm really looking forward to the second one.
Me too.
And we're glad that you're back. you didn't forget the Topsfield and the library.
Never. This is the library.
As a town, we are very, very lucky to have. I'm saying this. Take me out of it.
Sure.
It's not because of me. It's not because of me, but it is an awesome library, and it is really an awesome part of this community, and it makes my job easier. It makes my job funner too. So, thank you so much for coming. Really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Yeah.
This was great.
Now.
Questions I didn't want on camera.